Let's have a quick recap then. How did we get this circuit working? First off, we checked our work, checked it again, etc. Then we broke up the whole thing, the power supply, the transformer, etc. Found each one was okay, and then we tested this one both DC wise and AC wise. What did I do? Didn't do anything fantastic really. I put a signal in and saw if we got one out. I followed the signal through. These are just coupling capacitors here to the opamp, and then from the opamp through another decoupling cap to these terminals here. That's all I did. We found once we replaced the opamp that the right side worked, the left side didn't, and that was down to Ian thinking that he got a short here. Let's just get something to point which is not big and fat. Thought it got a short here and had cut the trace. I restored that, and then I found that we still had an intermittent signal coming out. I determined that that was due to the cheap arse socket that they used, and then you just use some headers to replace that, to replace the crap socket, and we should be good. We've still got a little bit of a way to go. So now we have to put it all back together and get it to work in the thing, and we need to test it to see if it is doing what a RIAA phono preamplifier should do. And as I said, now we've got to find a way of putting it all back together. I can sort that. That will sit down there, and I'm going to have to pull you back a bit. I want the audio bit as far away from that transformer as possible. It could be that we still need to put a bit of shielding in there, but we'll see. So I want this down here, and the same goes for the power supply. Ian had the power supply mounted on the back down there, and the transformer here, where or maybe the transformer was it. Hold on. I'm not quite sure where we are, because every time I start recording the bloody phone goes, and so I'm not really sure about the continuity. Right, I've sorted out the main side. The on-off switch is the same. I've changed the cord because the cord that Ian used was a bit thick, and I didn't want to start drilling too much and whatnot, so this grommet and this piece of mains cord just fitted right. I fitted a mains fuse going into the transformer, protect the switch transformer. I've mounted the power supply on the back here. This is after having sorted out all the issues with the preamp board. I've wired all the grounds, earths, or whatever you like to call them, all together, because otherwise you've got 4 wires going from here to here. It's not necessary because all the grounds are common to each other. I established that by buzzing it out with a continuity tester on my digital multimeter. Everything, all the wires are on and everything. That will go to the transformer, that will go to the preamp board. Now it's just a matter of finding somewhere where I can mount this. Yesterday I tried gluing it like so, which is a bit iffy and everything, but you haven't really got a lot of options. But that didn't work out, the glue didn't take, and thinking about it, it's a bit iffy anyway. So I mean, that my sort of plan B, as it were, is to mount it here. However, I'm not sure whether I'm going to get clearance with the outer box thing. I'll have a look at that now, back later. By the simple expedient of just bending the tab over, oh, you can't really see, by the simple expedient of bending the tab of the LM317 over, I can now put that there ish, and it'll clear that. Yeah, what I shall do, I shall put a bit of tape on top of the LM317. If I'd have been thinking about things and laid it out properly right from the start, that should have come this way a bit, and I would have used an LM317 with a bit longer legs and just folded it down. As it's only supplying about 15 milliamps, it doesn't need a heatsink. Didn't need a bit of tape or insulation, as there's plenty of clearance there. Now it's just a matter of wiring all the ins and outs and the power supply. I shouldn't need screen cable for this, so I'll try that first. If you know we've got too much ripple and noise on the output, then we'll have to look at that again. Before I get too carried away and wire everything up, I'm just going to test the power supply that it's still working. When you bash things about a bit and physically manipulate them is what I'm trying to say, there's always a chance that something's got knocked and disconnected or whatever. So let's try that out first. As you can see, I've got the board securely mounted in there. It's clearing that LM317 center tab, which is probably the output. And I bet you can't see that. There we go. On nothing. Right, okay, so we've got a problem there. Right, we've got a problem. I need to try and find out what the crack is. I checked the board out and then eventually had to take it out because I couldn't see anything wrong, and now I'm just testing the LM317. I've just tacked on a couple of resistors there. I hope you can bloody well see that. Right, it's reading 20 volts. So I tacked on a 220 ohm between adjust and output, and a 3K3 between ground and adjust. And now my bench power supply is playing silly buggers. Try again. So the LM317 is working. I looked at the bottom of the board and can't see anything wrong, and took some resistances between the output, etc., and what have you. I don't know quite what's going off. Originally, like I say, this was intended to run heaters for a valve amp, so if I was using it for this application, I'd probably use something like a LM7815. I'll clean this up, try bunging it back in, and then we'll see where we go from there. But it's a good job I checked before wiring up all the board. So tip number 135, check your work every time you do something, check it just in case. Well, that's a puzzler and no mistake. I've cleaned the board up with solder. It's damn glare, and as you can see, it's working. Dodgy soldering, who knows. I will put it back in and start all over again. Ain't electronics fun? We're getting somewhere. 1 kilohertz sine wave in. Hope you can see that. Let me zoom you in. I think you can see that. Let me just turn up the intensity a tad. Where are we? Intensity. In 10. Okay. That is the right hand channel. Left hand channel. So we're cooking with gas. Next I'm going to use my reverse RIAA input filter thingy to see whether it's doing the RIAA business, as it were. I know it's not being very technical, am I? I have the reverse RIAA filter with the 1 volt 1 kilohertz sine wave going in, and it should come out basically unchanged into there. Is that correct? It's a while since I've done this, so forgive me if I'm a bit discombobulated. Let's try and sort something out. Hopefully you can see that. So what I'll do, I'll take this probe here from the output to the input, which is here. Right. Well, that makes sense, obviously. Oh, does it? I don't know. I don't know what the freaking hell's going off. Let's try that. So we've got 1 kilohertz going in. What we should get out is if it's a really good RIAA filter, it's the same amplitude no matter what the frequency. 1 kilohertz. Let's change that to 100 hertz. And that's about right, isn't it? Okay. Now let's bung that up to 10 kilohertz. We've got a bit of bounciness going off there, but that's because we're not shielded. So that's right. If we were to not use the filter and just put it straight through the if we were not to use the reverse RIAA, God, that's a gobful filter, we should see that being less. No, I don't know. I'm talking bollocks. Let me get my head around this, and then I'll get back to you. I've took the reverse filter off. What we've got there is 10 kilohertz. As you can see, it's really small. Just jiggle it back. What the RIAA filter does is when you cut in a groove in a acetate, whatever you call it, plastic record, if you were to just put all the different frequencies in at the same amplitude, then what you would have to do, because bass frequencies are wider apart and all that, your groove in the record would have to be great big massive things to fit the bass frequencies on. So what they do when the record is made and produced and all that, they bung this filter on it, which makes the bass frequencies smaller, so that the groove you cut in your acetate, your bit of plastic record, is the same as your sort of high frequency one, so it all fits in. You can get more music on the record, if you're with me. But also what happens is when you cut a high frequency groove on the doings on the acetate, if you're not careful, if you didn't use the filter, you just end up with loads of hiss, because the groove is going to be, I don't know, sorry, the groove is going to be smaller. So what we should find is that 1 kilohertz is usually your sort of mid frequency. It shouldn't be changed much. So let's bung 1 kilohertz in. Frequency 1 kilohertz. So I'm bunging in 1 kilohertz at 10 millivolts. And as you can see, it's that big. Now then, if I bung in 100 hertz, it should be smaller. No, I'm talking bollocks. It should be bigger. Really hard to get your head around this. So it is bigger. That's where we were before, 1 kilohertz. So it should be bigger. Now, if we put in 10 kilohertz, it should be smaller. And it is. If you want to get your head around this, better channels than so yeah, there are better reference and probably better videos that treat the RIAA subject and the filter and all that better than what I can. The acid test now is, as you can see, I'm using no screen cable between the outputs and inputs from the board to the sockets. Is when we put it inside a will it still be the same when I put it inside the thing here? The reason I've sort of made it like this as well, different from how Ian did it. So what I'm hoping to do, that should fit through there, that board there should fit through here, and then that should go on the other end, meaning that you can test it out of this chassis thingy here and not have to take the whole thing apart like I did to be able to diagnose it. Well, I hope that gave you a few ideas about how to find faults with your own builds, your own circuits, your own projects. A few little tips there. We've still got a bit of a ways to go. We've found out why it wasn't working. I've still got a few little bits and bobs to get it working completely, and as you see it here, we've got the RIAA phono preamp connected up to my Citronic turntable, and that is going straight into my 2C34 tri push pull AB2 blah 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 amplifier. No preamplifier, just straight into the amp. See how it sounds. Got a pentangle basket of light. Well, that sounded alright. We've got no hum. However, there is one thing I forgot when I built it, and that is to do a little grounding point for the ground of the turntable, which I completely forgot about. I don't usually play records. Let's see what else we've got in the old record collection. We've got a bit of Joe Walsh. The smoker you drink, the player you get. Hold on, let's start. Just trying to... Right, if I've got a criticism of it, there's not much top end, but that could be down to my hearing. I usually have to have a bit of treble because I'm an old bugger, nearly 60. So yeah, need a bit more top end. I think I can still hear up to about 15k, which ain't bad for an old bugger. I'm going to try it with the, what do you call it, preamplifier there, and see if that makes any difference. I doubt it. What it really needs is a tone control, I think. Well, for me personally. Right, I've got it going through the preamp there. Right, I can't hear any difference. Obviously we've got a bit more volume and what have you. Spin you around, do apologise. What I usually use myself is one of these, which is a Garrod MRM, Music Recovery Module, which is basically an RIAA phono amp with sort of suppressor, where you call it, you know, scratch filter and all that. So we could try that, see if that makes a difference. I don't think it will. Well, here we are, going through the Garrod thingy. And I can't tell. I think it sounds a bit, it's got a bit more higher end, I think, but it's so hard to objectively compare two audio sources, it really is. Well, thanks for sticking through all that. I hope some of it made sense and it helped some of you to fix your own projects. The RIAA phono preamp is now winging its way to Ian, and hopefully you'll get some, you know, enjoyment out of it, and you can play his own tunes. Thank you all for watching. Take care of yourselves. Ta-da for now.